Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Hello, gentlemen. Why did the British wear red? Good question. Not the greatest color for camouflage, but obviously a different type of warfare back then. It was more about the imagery, I suppose. Let's learn. My name's Connor, if you're new. Rhode Island, New England, USA, in that order. I like to watch things and learn stuff. Yeah, love for you to join. Hit all the buttons. Original link to the video, top of the description. Right below that, link to the Discord. If you don't get a role right away, don't worry. I will promote you within the day. Let's go. If you're not ready to learn, there's the door. You're in the wrong class. Brandon F., great channel. Dude, you're American. What are you wearing?
Why did the British redcoats wear red? Of course, red is the iconic color of the British military, being worn throughout the 18th century, the grand majority of the 19th century, even ceremonial uniforms wearing red in the 20th and 21st century as well. But why? Well, there are an awful lot of reasons floating around on the internet, arguments and whatnot that people put forward as to why the soldiers wore red back in the day. And certainly there's an element of truth to a lot of them, but for the most part, they're actually kind of missing the point, which I'm afraid isn't terribly exciting. There's a great way to keep you to the end of the video, is telling you the answer isn't that exciting. First things first.
I just want to know. I'm not looking for an exciting answer. I'm just curious why.
First, did the British military wear red to hide blood? No, 1,000 times no, not at all. That was not the reason why the British wore red. First things first, it wouldn't actually work. Not only, of course, is only a part of the uniform red, as you can see,
that's
throughout various time periods, while, yes, indeed, the majority of the redcoat uniform will be red, there are going to be very vast swaths which are not, such as we have here, the facings are going to be a variety of different colors, be they blue, be they green, be they yellow, or what have you.
Including you have white, which is
those are not red. You have the lacing on the coat, which is not red. You have very large portions, oftentimes, of the inside lining, which is, there we are, you may be able to see it there, which is not going to be red, although some of it may be. Of course, beyond all that, the fact that the coats, especially in the 18th century, are designed to be open. And what do you have underneath the coats? Small clothes, which are also not red. If someone gets hit by a musket ball, and there is, or even, heck, if someone has blood splatter onto them from someone else, there are plenty of places on these coats where the red is going to show up very, very clearly. And what's more, even then, is on this red in particular, the shades that the British Army has always used, if blood does splatter onto the clothing, you're still going to notice it. Blood stains as black on these clothing. It's sort of a very dark black, very, very dark red sort of shade, very distinctive from the shade of red that I'm wearing right now. It's going to be immensely obvious if a man is hit and indeed there's blood somewhere on him. It's not going to hide it in any capacity. And what's more is, of course, the fact that if a man is hit by a musket ball, there's really no reason for them to try and hide the blood stain. Because first off, if a man is hit, you're going to know it. They're going to fall over. They're going to be doubled over in pain. They're going to be shouting things like, ah, and I've been hit, and oh mother, oh God, please help me. At that point, if you're marching along and your fellow falls down, crumples down to the side, on the bottom there, and he's screaming in pain, you look down on him, you're not going to think, I wonder if he's been hit. I can't see any blood on him. No, it's going to be very, very obvious if your fellows are hit. It's going to be very obvious to the enemy. It's going to be very obvious to your men. There's no morale-saving factor or terrifying appearance factor that can play into having the men wear red to hide bloodstains for whatever reason. To say nothing as well, of course, that if someone's trying to help a fellow, then it would actually be bad for them to not be able to locate where the wound is.
Good point.
If the clothing is somehow hiding where the wound is. In any case, no, they did not wear red to hide blood. But another one of the big reasons that I've seen sort of put out there as to why British soldiers were wearing red is because from...
I'm guessing because you said it's not a very exciting reason. It's just like they just thought it was a good color. Or
sort of put out there as to why British soldiers were wearing red is because from a distance, they say, when, you know, enemy officers are looking through their spy glasses at the enemy lines, that when all the soldiers were wearing red, they actually sort of blended in together, and it made it very difficult to see just how many men the enemy had. I disagree with this as well. There might be some element of truth to it for various time periods, various circumstances.
wouldn't that be the case with any color if they're all the same?
And whatnot, but roughly, very broadly speaking, no, this is not the reason, this is not the explicit reason why soldiers would be wearing red. Now, it's possible, yes, that this does happen, that it does make soldiers harder to see from a distance, but that wouldn't be the reason why the soldiers are wearing red. It would really just be sort of an after effect of the soldiers wearing red. And as well, I don't think it would be, at least in the 18th century on a battlefield, it wouldn't be terribly advantageous either. Well, first things first, if red was a color which explicitly made it harder to see individual soldiers, and if that was such a very powerful force on the battlefield during this time period, well, then I imagine that other soldiers as well would be wearing red. Why would the French soldiers be wearing white? Why would the Prussian soldiers be wearing blue? Why would other colors be a factor if red was the best color to hide how many men you had, and if that was a reason for choosing it? You know, the fact that red is just simply one of a very wide assortment of colors seems to downplay the importance of that. And what's more, of course, is the fact that, again, the uniforms are not completely red. Oh, if, you know, one man's shoulder is sort of bleeding into the shoulder of another man there and you can't really make out how many are standing in line, oh, count the facings. One man. 2 men, 3 men. I feel like that would also be very simple. You know, there are going to be other factors, other distinguishing factors.
Right. I feel like if you wanted to disguise yourself through color, you would make sure there is no separation of color in the front of you. You would want the whole thing to be red to cover in with the guy next to you with the whole uniform to be red to have any sort of effect like that.
Which will make it possible for you to count individual men in the line opposite the way. But even then, I don't think that it would necessarily be worthwhile to even try and count how many soldiers the enemy has. Why do we think it would be so important to see exactly how many men the enemy has? Why do you need to be able to differentiate in a line how many men are in that line? You know, if you are, you know, if you're Napoleon, if you're Washington, whatever, you're sitting on a hill, you have your spyglass and you're looking out at that thin red line, you're not going to have to count how many men are in that line. You see, oh, look, there are the British. They're lined up. Their line extends from point A to point B. It's so and so long, and you can very clearly see it's 2 ranks thick, it's 3 ranks thick, however many. You don't have to count individual men to see how many numbers they have. It's more a matter of, oh, look, there's that regiment. This is how much space they're occupying on the field. This is how much force we're going to need to break them. It's a very sort of micromanagement, very specific sort of thing to be looking for is, oh, how many men do they have explicitly and whether or not they're blending in and whatnot. That's not going to really play too much of a factor, I can't see, on a...
I feel like people always tend to think there must be some really, really good reason for everything, and sometimes...
battlefield back in the day, and when it's more a matter of which regiment is where, which company is where, which battalion is where, and how much space are they taking up on the field of battle. Even if it did help them blend in, which, again, it's possible, but I don't see that being the reason for soldiers wearing red like this. So why did the British Army wear red during the 18th and 19th centuries? Well, it actually goes back to the English Civil War and the New Model Army. You see, when the New Model Army was being established, you know, Cromwell and Parliament and all those sorts of distinctly unfunny things, when they were building up their new army, their single, standardized, and more professional army, as opposed to what had been seen in the past, they decided, Parliament did, that the new army should have one singular, unified uniform. You see, prior to this time period, in like more the early 17th century, 16th century, individual regiments, individual military uniform units are going to be wearing different uniforms as provided by the officers above them, as provided even by themselves in particular time periods. There's nothing really unifying.
Men could be clad in livery, etc. of a unified design of. I just sounded.
Certainly, things like military equipment could be, more unified as far as what the men are wielding, but as far as what they're wearing while wielding those weapons, it's not going to be the case. The new model army changed that. They decided, right, we should have one set uniform for the entire army. It'll be more cost efficient that way, really more than anything else.
Maybe red's an easy pigment.
They decided, the new model army did, on their uniforms being red. Now, why did they decide that they wanted their uniforms?
It's a cheap dye. That's my guess.
To be red. Not because it made them harder to see from a distance, which in the end, again, to be like, oh look, that's where the enemy is. We can see because they're in the middle of an massive open field. That's how warfare is fought in this time period. There's very little element of surprise or, hiding
guerrilla
from
warfare
the enemy in that sort of situation. It's not going to be because it hides blood for some silly reason. No, it's because red was cheapest. Parliament is looking to purchase.
I got it. I got that.
Just a whole bunch of new clothing for their military. It's a government contract. And of course, what is a government contract going to do but look for the cheapest available option? They would have looked at the purple and said, oh, God, no.
Guys, come on. Credit. Give me.
Looks great, but much too expensive. They look at the blue, nice, but still very pricey. And they look at the red, the Venetian red. That's the shade that it was at the time. And it was not only very cheap, but it was readily available for whatever reason to Parliament at the time. They went with the cheapest option, the red, and that is what became the de facto British military color for the next however many hundreds of years. Of course, starting with the English army.
I'm so proud of myself.
Became the British Army, and, here we have it. And of course, as time goes by, the price fluctuates, the shade changes and whatnot. Yes, all these different reasons. But why do they keep the red? Well, mainly because early on, it was the cheapest one to keep using. Then it became, well, we've always used red. And then it became an issue of pride. The British Army wears its red, the red coat. It's iconic, becomes a matter of symbolism, and once it becomes a matter of symbolic value to the nation, well, it's very difficult to change that. Of course, it didn't change until the late 19th century and the adoption of all those more earthen.
I like I love the Blythe helmet.
It's not very exciting, the reason why the British Army wore red, mainly because it was cheap. Until the next time, my dear viewer, I am and I shall remain your most humble and obedient of servants.
I like this guy a lot. Brendan F. Awesome. Wearing the traitorous red coat, but I'm good, right? All right. I rarely get to pat myself on the back because I'm learning though, okay? Interesting. It was cheap. I like it. I want a Blythe helmet. See you guys next time. Hope you're all doing well. Really do. If you're having a bad day, that sucks. Everyone has them. Pick your head up. It'll be a good day around the corner. See you next time.